In the second half of the 20th century, we came to accept that in certain cases we should avoid deliberately hurtful language. While many deride political correctness for going too far, its initial aim to establish non-hateful language was, and still is, admirable. In the early 20th century, moron was a medical term for someone with a mental age of between 8 and 12. Mongol was a person with Down syndrome, and also was indirectly a slur on people from Mongolia, some of whose features were supposed to resemble those with Down syndrome. Retarded described someone mentally, socially or physically less advanced than their chronological age. We know these terms now primarily as pejoratives. Mongol, following the Australian tendency to form diminutives, has even given us Mong, meaning someone who is stupid or behaves as such. Yet there is also a consensus such language is unacceptable. How did we get here? The path to dignified language. In December 1948, the United Nations passed the Universal Declaration of Human Rights. Affirming the dignity of all humans, Article 1 of this landmark document states. Article 2 goes on to specify this should apply. The Declaration, prompted by the dehumanizing events of the Second World War, soon led to concerted initiatives to avoid hurtful and denigrating language. Race and ethnicity was the first area to be addressed in Australia, where the philosophy of respect was enshrined in the Racial Discrimination Act of 1975. This included the currently controversial Section 18C, which made it an offence to offend, insult, humiliate or intimidate someone else on the basis of race or nationality. Read more. What is Section 18C and why do some politicians want it changed? In the 1980s the scope was expanded in Australia to include gender and sexuality, with the legitimisation of terms like queer, and an increasing range of different kinds of sexuality now evident in the LGBTQ designations. The third big change involved the language for people with disabilities, whether cognitive or physical. Here the English vocabulary was full of terms that mixed description with pejorative overtones. People first words like deaf, blind, dumb and lame are not only descriptions of physical ability and disability, but are commonly used in negative ways. For instance, deaf as a post, blind Freddy. We have now moved away from such language. Especially unacceptable are nouns like retard or adjectives like demented. In their place we have the principle of people first. The person and the disability are separated. Instead of a phrase like demented person we have person with dementia or person living with dementia. The New South Wales Department of Aging, Disability and Home Care has a list of such terms. We should avoid terms that suggest deficit in a negative way, such as disabled, invalid, retarded, handicap, spastic and cripple. We should also avoid terms that explicitly specify a limitation like confined, say, to a wheelchair. Suffering from is to be eschewed for the same reason, since it suggests the person is passive and incapable. Read more. Redefining the able body, disabled performers make their presence felt at the fringe.